Oh, hi.
Hi.
Hello, April.
Welcome to the show.
Hello, friends. Welcome in. We have one hell of a show planned because everything is broken. Everything is falling apart.
This is the first episode. We're in our show rundown. At the very bottom, I have like honorable mention topics that are all huge topics we could do a whole show on by themselves. So who knows if we'll get to everything. I'm sure we will not, because what even is this life right now? There's too many things.
100%. Friends, welcome into the Tim and April show. We go live every Thursday at noon Eastern. We also do deep dives on Christian nationalism on Mondays, so make sure that you are subscribed to the YouTube channel. Give this video a like if you're watching it right now. That would mean so much to us. It helps let YouTube know that more people want to see this video. Like I said, welcome in. I am Tim Whitaker. That is April LaJoy. We do this show twice a week now, which is amazing. Yeah, there's so much to get into, and we'll get into it because I'm not sure about you, April, but I always feel like I am just, every time I turn my phone on, which is too much, by the way, it's like just standing in front of a fire hose. I just feel like I'm like trying to catch water, but it's just so much. There is so much happening at all times, and it's hard to keep up, frankly.
It is hard to keep up. It's just a constant flow of not just news, but pretty bad news. And just honestly, like insane headlines that at one point in my life, I didn't think I would see. But we did want to start off with some good news, right?
Yes.
So,
yes. I mean, it's good news. It's good news for most people. It's not good news for some person. For some people.
If you're named Elon Musk, not good news. But for everyone else, I mean, Elon Musk has been lamenting the absolute nosedive of profits for Tesla.
It's like a meteor just booming right to planet Tesla. So it turns out that Tesla was down 71% in Q1 as far as profits go, which is outlandish for any business. I mean, any business at all, small, large, medium, doesn't matter. 71% is that is. I mean, it's almost like the Onion wrote that article. It's so outlandish to me.
Yeah, no, that is, if you are a business person, a 71% drop in profit is not what you want to see. That's bad news right there.
Bad news bears.
Yeah. And according to that article from the New York Times, says that earnings were well below Wall Street's expectations. Tesla would have lost hundreds of millions of dollars had it not earned $400 million in interest on cash and investments, and then an additional $595 million from selling credits to other car makers that failed to meet emissions regulations that Mr. Trump has pledged to eliminate. So once those, if I'm reading it right, I think once those are eliminated, which would be bad because that helps it helps climate change.
Yeah.
But it sounds like Elon Musk himself would lose even more money once those once that's eliminated.
I mean, it turns out that pesky federal government that's too big and too bloated is actually helping keep Tesla afloat. Who would have thought? Who would have thought that government subsidies and tax credits and selling credits based on federal regulations and what's the department? Wow. What's the department that regulates the environment?
EPA?
Thank you. Jeez Louise. Yeah, the EPA. It turns out that, some of those things are part of the reason why Tesla did not completely lose out on everything. According to USA Today, it says that Tesla's earnings showed a 71% drop in net income and a 9% decline in revenue, and that Elon attributes some of this to rapidly evolving trade policy and changing political sentiment. But analysts express concerns that maybe part of the real problem here is the fact that Elon Musk tried to gut the government from the inside out as an unelected bureaucrat. And also, I don't know, was really controversial for how he did it, including lying. And the American population was like, you know what? We're going to boycott Tesla. Maybe that has something to do with not a 5% drop.
Salutes?
Perhaps, April. I mean, it's hard to say. Maybe most Americans don't like when unelected billionaires give Nazi salutes in honor of their new commander-in-chief, because 71% is not a bump in the road, and that's not just because of economic, like turbulence or things like that. This is because Americans were like, no, absolutely freaking not. We are boycotting this man and everything that he stands for. So that's some good news. That is good news today. That I'm happy to see.
Did you ever pull that audio of Trump saying, "I love Tesla"?
I need to.
Great time.
I know. I love Tesla.
I know. Alden in the chat mentioned I love Tesla, and I'm like, oh, that.
I love it.
I love Tesla.
Yeah. It's. It really is unbelievable when you think about it. That. We're almost at the 100-day mark, I think, for Trump's presidency. And
has it only been 100 days?
Well, yeah, I mean, and the wild thing is, so the other crazy part about the whole thing with Doge is that they came in like Elon. So Elon, when he was campaigning with Trump, said that we can initially cut $7 trillion out of the government. And then when he got into his Doge position, he said, okay, we can cut $1 trillion from the government. So he already really lowered expectations. And then it turns out that now he's walked that back, and he anticipates that they would cut about $150 billion, which is 85% less than what they initially said, according to, this is the New York Times. And then, according to the New York Times, it says even that figure may be too high, according to a New York Times analysis of Doge's claims. And that's because when Mr. Musk's group tallies up its savings so far, it inflates its progress by including billion-dollar errors, by counting spending that will not happen in the next fiscal year, and by making guesses about spending that might not happen at all. One of the group's largest claims, in fact, involves canceling a contract that did not even exist. Although the government says it had merely asked for proposals in that case and had not settled on a vendor or a price, Mr. Musk's group ignored that uncertainty and assigned itself a large and very specific amount of credit for canceling it. It is...
What a failure. But also, like,
meritocracy, baby.
I mean, we love to see it. We love to see karma, consequences for actions. Like, and for the people that are saying the boycotts and the protests are not working, like,
yes,
this is a clear show that it does work. And it's not just Americans that boycotted Tesla. I mean, there were countries all over the world boycotting Tesla as well because of what they were seeing happening in America.
100%.
But I also don't want to just... He also caused a lot of damage. The USAID cuts, they're cutting back on medical research, on cancer research. Like, so many of the cuts that he has done is going to be detrimental moving forward. And I don't know how we recover from that, but at least he's also miserable. So
makes me very happy, honestly. I mean, I don't like I don't like rejoicing in other people's misery, but in Elon's case, I absolutely am rejoicing in that, because hopefully it tells him that his views and policies, or his actions, are not popular for most Americans, right? This goes back to the bigger point that these Christian nationalists who have helped kind of get Trump elected, et cetera, all of this stuff, it's not popular. It's not popular at all, and it affects real people, right? I mean, we talked about how the USAID, getting rid of that whole department, that's like the humanitarian arm of our government. And to have a billionaire go in and just gut it, and then be supported by Christian nationalists, is just unbelievable to witness. But the free market has spoken, Elon. We don't like what you're doing, so cut it out.
Yeah, get out of here. What is that? Remember on Full House? Cut it out. From Joey?
Wow. Yes, I do now. That's a deep dive.
That was like, came from the depths of my brain just then. Okay. Do you have our golf tracker? Since we
I do. Yeah,
that
good
is
call.
one
good call.
thing that we do.
Let's pull that up. So we're gonna stop tracking the price of eggs, and the reason why is because they've leveled out. They're pretty much sitting at about $2.92 a dozen, so they're still higher than what they were a year ago under President Biden, but they're not nearly as high as they were in January. So we'll keep you guys apprised of that, but it's not really worth covering a whole lot.
Yeah, and also I don't know if eggs are the best tell of how the economy is doing.
Right. That is fair. So.
Yeah.
So Trump golf tracker. Okay, as of as of today, 94 days in office, 24 days spent golfing equals 25% of the time Trump has been on a golf course.
Okay, so that's gone down a little bit. I feel like it was 27% last week.
It was 26, so. 0.25% last week.
So barely gone down. But regardless, a quarter of his time has been spent golfing. So.
Yeah, golfing and winning tournaments on Mar-a-Lago and other. I mean, I live in New Jersey, and there's a golf course that's I think it's called the Trump Golf Course. He goes to play tournaments up there, and he tends to always win them. It's I mean, look, you have to laugh at it because it's just so ridiculous. But also, we both know that if Joe Biden was golfing the way that Trump was golfing, it'd be all over Fox News and OAN and One American and Newsmax, because Biden was now, Biden's the vacationing president who just isn't getting anything done as the economy tanks. That's what's so frustrating about this whole thing, is that if the shoe was on the other foot, if it was President Kamala Harris in office and the stock market tanked the way that it has tanked, right? And she was on vacation or golfing 25% of the time, you bet your ass that they be all over it. But because it's Trump, we're so back, baby. We're so back.
Yeah. Well, if there's one thing they're consistent on, it's being hypocrites. So that's fun. Yeah. So big news that happened this past Monday morning. So obviously this past weekend we had Easter. The holiday of all holidays if you're a Christian.
The Super Bowl if you're an evangelical Christian. Your big Sunday production happens,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Hoping to save souls.
Wait till you see our weird Christian video we have for you later.
This might be the cringiest one, perhaps, of all time. I mean, it's so painful, but we'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Yeah. So this is when your campus, your mega church campuses are doing multiple services. They're pulling out all the stops. This is when they're expecting, the heathens and the sinners to show up to church for the people that only go on Christmas and Easter. It's a big weekend. Monday morning, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that I also want to add that in particular for evangelical churches, this is their biggest Sunday for potentially winning souls to join their church. So there's a huge emphasis on bragging about how many souls you and your people saved that day. And then all these churches post about, we've had 500 souls won for Christ. We had 1,000 people make a commitment to Jesus. Of course, the problem with this is that most people don't know what they're signing up for, and most people don't ever go back. So it becomes this really weird numbers game with absolutely no fruit or foundation underneath of it. But it is, and listen, I'm guilty of being part of that world and drumming in those environments and praying for that to happen. So certainly, I have plenty of guilt on my own hands for this. But being on the outside of it now, it just is really wild to watch these churches be so focused on attracting as many people as possible in the hopes that they walk down an aisle, pray a prayer, so they can sign a card that says, I committed to Jesus today, so then they can brag about it on social media.
Little Connect card. We had so many people fill out our Connect cards and are now going to our small group and now going to Sunday school. And look how many kids participated in our egg hunt. And we had bounce houses and very much a numbers game.
100%.
But it happens every year. This year fell on 420.
Ironic.
I did not see any Christians mad at Trump for turning Easter into a marijuana day, because they certainly blamed Biden last year for turning into a trans visibility day, because they don't know how calendars work.
Nope.
But okay, let's get serious. The Pope, Pope Francis, passed away early Monday morning. He was able to attend his Easter. I think he attended his Easter service. Regardless, he met JD Vance Well, that was big news because JD Vance was at the Vatican over the weekend. On Saturday, met with Pope Francis's number 2. And according to AP, some people were reporting that Pope Francis did not attend that meeting, but kind of sent his number 2, where they had, what was it, an exchanging of opinions, which feels like a nice way to say they disagreed.
Right.
On especially like how the Trump administration is treating immigrants. Pope Francis had been previously very outspoken against the Trump administration and how they were inhumanely treating migrants and refugees.
Yep.
And there are some memes going around about JD Vance meeting the Pope that we won't share here.
Yeah. We're going to take the high road on that one. But if you Google it, you might find things. We could just say it that way.
Yeah. The one silver lining.
I mean, there's a comment of a way of putting it. He met JD Vance, then he peaced out. I mean,
yeah,
you could say that.
I mean, if you see, like, this is the guy who's second in line to become president of the free world. Who knows how long it'll be free, but I mean, yeah, I don't know if that would be the most encouraging desire to live, after meeting him.
Okay,
sorry.
We can get through this. That's okay. You're good.
Yeah. Gosh, what is happening? It's not even Monday. It's Thursday.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Pope Francis, I would say, so obviously we're not Catholic.
Right.
But from everything that I have known about Pope Francis, and obviously he's not perfect, he's still leader of a church that has caused a lot of harm to a lot of people. But it did seem like Pope Francis was one of the more genuinely compassionate popes in my lifetime anyway. He was very vocal about humanitarian needs in Gaza. He was just I would say a very humanitarian pope, and I've seen some clips of him, just the way that he's answered questions and some things that he's said that just seemed to be very genuinely, that maybe moved the needle of the Catholic Church slightly to be more loving and inclusive.
Yeah, so a couple things about Pope Francis that I think is just so interesting. First off, he was the first Latin American and member of the Jesuit order to be elected pope in the church's 2,000-year history, and he was also the first pope to call himself Francis. What's interesting about this too is that he was part of the Jesuit order, and Jesuits are really focused on helping the poor and marginalized around the world. They even founded the Jesuit Refugee Service during the Vietnam War in the 80s, or in the early 1980s was when they founded it in response to the Vietnam War. And it's one of the most active organizations globally today that helps refugees and asylum seekers around the world regardless of their faith. So he's part of that order, which makes sense because he had a huge emphasis, like you said, April, on advocating for the marginalized and the poor. He called priests in Gaza nightly, and he would seek updates on both Christians and Muslims in the area. He quickly gained a reputation as a modernizer with an outward-facing approach, which saw him speak out boldly on humanitarian crises such as migration, war, and climate change. He sought to reform the church by tackling elitist mentalities among the clergy, demanding a compassionate approach to divorced and gay Catholics, and insisting that the church welcomes everyone. And he also did try to take measures to hold the Catholic Church accountable for sex abuse crimes, although those measures did fall short. And as we know, abuse has plagued the Catholic Church. But he really was really passionate about doing everything he could to try and minimize that and to seek reforms to hold bishops and other clergy accountable. And he was the first priest, or first pope, to authorize blessings for same-sex couples. That's, again, I know that there are some people listening who are like, too little, too late. I totally get that, right? We're not here to minimize the real damage that Christianity, including the Catholic Church, has done to many different types of people. But the fact that the most powerful person in the Catholic Church, right, the Pope, would say that I'm giving authorization for priests to bless same-sex couples is a huge step in the right direction for sure. So again, no one is perfect. There are plenty of flaws that we can pick apart, including in, things in the Catholic Church. You and I are not Catholic, so it's not really our job. But it is pretty impressive to see, what he did for who he was in the Catholic Church.
Yeah, and it will be interesting in the next week or so as they pick the new pope, with the conclave, which,
Yes.
if you have not seen the movie Conclave, it came out last year. It is fantastic. It is very well done. It's fiction, so it's not based on actual people, but it basically takes place. The whole movie is about a pope dying, and then the entire process that happens for electing a new pope. And some of the people in the running for the new pope in the movie are very similar to kind of what's happening in real time, because now you're going to see this push between the more progressive Catholics and then your more, traditional conservative Catholics. And a lot of the more conservative ones really were not a fan of Pope Francis because of the more progressive views that they believe that he had. And so there's this real push to try to move Catholicism back to be pretty right wing,
Yep.
which would not be great considering the world that we're in right now. But you're going to be seeing a battle with that in mind. But there's also some other people similar to Pope Francis who are a little more progressive in their views, or even moderate, that would probably try to continue what Pope Francis did, including, you have a video of one of them, right?
Yep.
That
Yes. I'm going to play a video from Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle. He's a potential successor. He's in the running to become the next pope. Before I do that, friends, welcome in, by the way, if you're just joining the stream. Make sure to give this video a like. It would help us out so much. It lets YouTube know that, hey, people are into this. So if you're enjoying what we're talking about, if you like being here, give the video a like and make sure to sub to the channel. So let's get into this one. This is actually, I think, a really powerful short video. It's not long. It's about 2 minutes, but this is a potential successor to Pope Francis. And I got this from the account Dream for America. They're a pro-democracy group. Check this out. I think it's a really great minute and a half here.
How many factory workers are being denied the right wages for the God called prophet? How many women are being sacrificed to the God called domination? How many children are being sacrificed to the God called lust? How many trees, rivers, hills are being sacrificed to the God called progress? And how many poor people are being sacrificed to the God of greed? And defenseless people sacrificed to the God of national security.
My. I think, that's powerful. What's disappointing is that people, a lot of evangelicals and others, will see that and go, ugh, another woke potential scenario for the new pope. But what's so discouraging is that, first off, this cardinal is actually from the Philippines. He has really no context or no, his world is not American politics. But number two, if you just, dare I oversimplify it and say, follow the teachings of Jesus. If you read the Sermon on the Mount, if you read, if you drink from the well of robust Christian teaching, both in Protestant and Catholic circles, those are very typical, understandable, rational ideas to have. That Jesus would be against militarism, that he would be against the pillaging of the planet, right, for profit. These are great things, but we're in such a hyper, right-wing climate in America that for a pope or for a cardinal to say this will be interpreted by some as being part of the Democratic Party, which isn't even the case. It's frustrating because it's so good. I thought that whole line, everything he said, I'm like, yes, this is so good. I love it.
Yeah, and it's very anti-Christian nationalist too. What they're saying, take care of the least of these. It's right. Very, gospel 101 if you're reading the red letters, especially, right. Which is interesting.
Yes.
Why so many people had such bad things to say about Pope Francis, but it goes beyond even just because he seemed a little more progressive.
Yeah.
Because as you and I know, being raised Protestant, evangelical, there is a lot of anti-Catholic sentiment built in to
A lot.
maybe not the official belief system, but it was definitely taught to me. Like, I don't know what you were taught about the end times and the rapture and all of that, but there were probably two potential people who were probably going to be the Antichrist. One was whatever Democrat was running for president.
Right.
But the second one, and this was the one that most people that I knew, like in my circles, believed it would be the Antichrist, was the Pope.
Mm-hmm.
We believed that the Pope would be the Antichrist. I was taught that Catholics were not true Christians because they worshiped Mary, and that they made idols of the saints, and that they didn't actually have a relationship with Jesus because they had to go through a priest.
That's exactly. I mean, so I wasn't taught directly that the Pope is probably the Antichrist, but everything else I was absolutely taught that it's a works-based salvation. It's not biblical. They worship Mary. They're not true Christians, which is ironic considering that Catholicism predates the Protestant Reformation by like over 1,000 years, right? Like
where do
Martin
they think
Luther,
we come from? We
right,
come from Catholics.
Before Martin Luther came along, the Catholic Church was there, right? So I guess until Martin Luther came along, no one believed the true gospel, which when you really think about it is wild. But yeah, I mean, absolutely grew up with very strong anti-Catholic sentiment. In fact, I actually have a small clip that we'll play of John MacArthur, who is, in my background, one of like the most authoritative pastors who has shaped the theology of so many people. And this, I think this clip here is a really good example of the type of anti-Catholic sentiment and how direct they were about Catholics not being true Christians. So listen to this clip.
And it is important for us to understand what it is that Roman Catholic theology teaches and what it is that Catholics believe and advocate. It is important for a number of reasons. The first and foremost reason that presents itself to me in this day is that evangelicalism is in a big hurry to redefine Catholic people as brothers and sisters in Christ. There is an eagerness to accept them because they talk about God and Christ and the Holy Spirit and the cross and the resurrection and even the Scripture. It is wishful thinking, however, to assume that people in the Roman Catholic Church are genuine Christians. In order to be genuine Christians, they would have to believe something other than Roman Catholic theology.
Wow. Wow, John. That's I mean, who made him the gatekeeper of what it means to be a Christian?
And I guess like before the Protestant Reformation, just nobody was Christian.
Yeah, no one. I mean, no
everyone,
one.
yeah.
No one. And by the way, we should say that there have been several reputable articles that have come out over the years that John MacArthur protected two men on his staff who SA'd their own children. And apparently for John, those men can still be Christians, no problem. But Catholics, nope, they're too far out of the bounds of Orthodox Christianity, which is hilarious because Catholics arguably are way more Orthodox than Protestants, especially the modern evangelical empire that we call, evangelicalism or the Protestant theology today. It's wild. The irony is not lost on me.
Which is why it is so interesting to see, really more traditional conservative Catholics who are Christian nationalists and the Christian nationalist Protestants coming together in order to make America Christian. But there's this underlying, I would say almost hatred, or at least just mass judgment of we despise each other. At the bottom line, if the theocracy were to happen,
right,
it would be like Crusades 2.0.
For
there
sure.
would be the Protestants and Catholics would not be getting along.
Well, and here's the crazy part, right? So John MacArthur, sorry, on that side of the screen, not you. I was pointing.
Yeah.
Okay. So John MacArthur is the same. We'll also say that, hey, God is using Trump and J.D. Vance, and J.D. Vance is a Catholic. So, there is, for Christian nationalists, there is a superseding, unifying identity marker that is more political than theological. However, April, to your point, whenever they get the power, which Christianity is going to win out? Is it going to be like the trad Catholic ideology? Is it the John MacArthur Christian nationalism? Is it the Sean Foyt charismatic Christian nationalism? They're just setting themselves up for some kind of massive war over who the true believers are. It's wild to witness.
Also, I meant to say the 30 Years War, not the Crusades.
30 years. No,
Crusades was a different war. Another Abrahamic war.
There's a lot of wars in our history.
So many wars. But yeah, so there was a lot of
there was
anti-Catholic sentiment immediately being posted after Pope Francis passed away. In case y'all don't believe us, here's someone. This is just in my feed that I saw. If your pastor is mourning over the Pope, he's a demon too.
100.
So not even just the Pope is a demon. Anyone, grieving over his passing, also a demon.
I think this is probably the most notorious one that we've seen.
Yep. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, Congresswoman, tweeted out just hours after Pope Francis died. She said, "Today there were major shifts in global leaderships. Evil is being defeated by the hand of God."
Yeah. I would call this Christian supremacy. I would say that Christian nationalist is a good term to use, but another term that could be even more applicable at times like this is Christian supremacist. And Marjorie Taylor Greene is a Christian supremacist. She believes that her incredibly narrow and fundamentalist understanding, and also I would argue ignorant and anti-intellectual understanding of the Bible and the faith, reigns supreme to the point where you literally think that God, the God that you serve, is killing people who you think are heretical. I mean, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's quite the statement to make.
Also, he was already ill. He had been in and out of the hospital a lot recently.
Yeah, 100%.
It was not necessarily shocking that he passed away.
But April, you know how folks like MTG are. They're always looking for connections, right? Everything is a conspiracy. Everything is connected. Everything happens for a reason. When it happens against you, it's the enemy. When it happens in your if it happens in a way that you agree with it, it is obviously God doing it. It's tough because I don't want to be mean or even talk down to someone like MTG, but she's so anti-intellectual. She's so foolish, and there's no way to reason with that kind of foolishness. And unfortunately, she has a lot of power because she's a federal lawmaker. That's the scariest part. If she was some person in her church saying crazy stuff online, okay, you have a right to say whatever you want, who cares? She has power in the federal government and believes this stuff for real. That's what makes it so scary.
Yeah, no, it's the fact that she even gets reelected after some crazy things that she has said and done. I used to go to church in her district in Georgia. Yeah. And that church was also pretty Christian nationalist. So
I'm glad you survived. Okay, I got a few more of these that we can go through. Friends, if you're just joining the stream, by the way, welcome in. Tim and April show. We are live right now. If you could do us a favor and give this video or stream a like, that'd be so helpful. We are talking right now about Pope Francis, his passing, and the anti-Catholic sentiment that we find in evangelicalism. Here's another one that we have that you can read this one, April. It's a real doozy.
With God as my witness, I'm not trying to come off as super spiritual, but I absolutely had a vision this morning. Oh, absolutely. I seen Pope Francis walking in hell with Satan beside him in the vision. This is all one run-on sentence, by the way. In the vision, I could tell that the Pope knew he had been serving Satan this whole time, but he didn't realize that he was going to have to burn all throughout eternity in a lake of fire. The devil had deceived him and used him to deceive hundreds of millions of other people. He was just a throwaway tool of the devil, but we need to know and realize that in the end, only those who never received a love for the truth are going to be deceived. 100.
But with God as your witness, this person's not trying to come off as super spiritual.
No, they just had a vision.
They just had a vision.
Pope Francis walking with Satan in hell.
But God as my witness, I'm not trying to come off as super spiritual.
Right. But listen, the Pope knew he had been serving Satan the whole time.
Yeah, of course.
But didn't think he'd end up in
course.
hell with Satan. Seems legit. I don't know.
Seems legit. Okay, here's another one.
All right. It's from Joshua. Catholicism is not Christianity, and Christianity is not Catholicism. Catholicism is a wicked pagan religion that is anti-Christ and anti-Bible.
100%.
Hashtag Pope Francis.
I grew up with a version of this, right? I mean, it wasn't that extreme, but my gosh, like, it's astounding the level of ignorance that is out there on matters like this. Even after doing this work for 3-4 years, still astounds me that there are people who think this is like a solid take. Catholicism is the earliest version, or one of the earliest versions of Christianity. They would argue, along with the Eastern Orthodox, they argue about this, that they have a direct lineage from the apostles to the Pope. And so it's just wild. It's wild to see people throw out 2,000 years of theology and tradition and just history and be like, nah, it's nonsense. But my conservative, evangelical, Christian nationalist understanding of the world is totally the truth. MAGA.
Oh my gosh. No, I know. I will say, I believe Catholics are Christians. Just going to say that. But
cool.
I did go to the Vatican. Here's the thing. If you claim to be Christian, and regardless of which denomination, whether you're Catholic or Protestant, like, I believe you're a Christian. Like, I'm not one to do the no true Scotsman fallacy and say they're not true Christians, especially when it comes to the Catholic Church, which is a very ancient church, like far older than us evangelicals. Like, evangelicals, we're like the new kid on the block of Christianity. We like make stuff up all the time. Anyway. But I went to the Vatican back in 2015, and I took the 3-hour tour, guided tour, where they go through all the history of the popes. And I will say, if you know the history of the popes, there was a time where there were 2 popes, and they believed whatever the pope said was of God. And at one point you had 2 popes, and they're going against each other. And there were some really awful popes that did some really terrible things historically. I personally could never be Catholic for that reason alone. I'm just not a fan of the institutional church anyway. But sometimes I'll have people in my comments that are like, "Well, you deconstructed evangelicalism, but that's only because that was not the true church." And I'm like, "Yeah, no, Catholics, y'all have done some things too. Not to beat up bring up the war, I'm just saying." We all have our problems. None of us are perfect.
The House of Christian Thought has a lot of skeletons in all of the rooms that exist, right? Because people are not perfect and they're broken, and Catholicism has its fair share of major, major problems for sure. I think what is so interesting to me is to watch people really think that they're brand new in the scope of human history. They're a brand new expression of Christianity that's very unorthodox in many, many ways. Somehow is representative of the entire Christian tradition, right? Because you think about, just think about the 3 schisms alone: Catholicism, Eastern Orthodox, and Protestantism, right? Those are 3 major church schisms. They have different books in their Bibles. The Eastern Orthodox, there's different books depending on what church you go to sometimes. Then you have the Protestant the Protestant Bible, etc. And to watch people argue over who has the one true faith, who has the one true expression of Christianity, it's comical to me, because it's like the Spider-Man meme. They're all just pointing at each other. It's like, guys, maybe there are parts of the traditions from all of us that we can share in and that we can learn from, and maybe think about the world is bigger than any one tradition, because maybe God is bigger than any one tradition. Maybe the God of the universe who created everything is bigger than your Bible-believing only church down the street, or the Catholic Church down the road, or the Eastern Orthodox Church somewhere in Europe, right? Maybe God is bigger than all of that.
Yeah, and I think all of us are finding out certain truths about God, but none of us have it all correct. It's impossible. The world is so big and God is so big that there's just no way. And also, lest I remind you, there's over 45,000 Christian denominations currently
Yeah.
in the world
Yeah.
currently.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
yeah.
Sentient Soy, give us a super chat. Thank you so much.
Thank
That means the
you.
world. Just so you all know, any super chats go directly to make this show possible. They go to overhead, covering our costs, etc. So it means the world. Thank you so much, friends. April and I, we love going live. Going live at least once a week is one of my favorite things to do. I love being in the moment. It just feels different. So make sure you give this stream a like. We love doing this, and we have more to get into. You want to kind of keep moving into speaking of evangelicalism and Christian supremacy.
Yeah. So we're talking about anti-Catholic bias
Yeah.
that we just showed you. How
Nice
about some
segue.
anti-Christian bias?
Boom, there it is.
Yeah.
I love it. Pam Bondi. Oh, my goodness. Oh, goodness. There's so much to say. We're not going to play this whole clip, but she announced the following. And by the way, Pete Hegseth is to her left. Marco Rubio is to her right. We'll talk about Pete in a few minutes here. But here's what she said this week. Here we go.
I don't have sound.
Oh, you don't?
No.
No sound. Oh, well, thank you for catching that. No sound.
You're welcome.
Whew.
Happy
I
to
know
help.
why. I know why. Okay, from the top.
This is anti-Christian bias right here.
The devil's in my computer. Here we go.
Today.
How about now?
We're excited to be here for the launch of the Task Force to Eradicate Anti-Christian Bias as outlined in the President's Executive Order. Joining me today are members of the task force and individuals who have been impacted by the anti-Christian bias.
Oh, boy.
Together, this task force will identify any unlawful anti-Christian policies, practices, or conduct across the government, seek input from the faith-based organizations and state governments to end anti-Christian bias, find and fix deficiencies in existing and regulatory practices that might contribute to the anti-Christian bias.
Oh. All right, we'll cut it off there. Yeah, so essentially there is a task force. There's a task force seeking to eradicate anti-Christian bias in the government, because April, nothing says anti-Christian like the majority of the majority of politicians being Christian. Like literally, I think the stat is 89% of Congress identifies as Christian. But hey, there is deep-seated anti-Christian bias that is so it's so profound in our government that we need a task force to eradicate it.
Also, every single president has claimed some form of Christianity
for sure
in some way. Like the idea that there's this anti-Christian bias is laughable, but it goes right along, speaking of things we were taught, with this persecution complex that conservative Christians have. I mean, I grew up, I was taught that Christians are persecuted, because Jesus said the world will hate you like it hated me. And so if you were not being hated, you were not really living out your faith. Like, because being persecuted and being, people not liking you was almost a sign of being a good Christian.
Yes.
But most people in America, have claimed some sort of Christianity. Like Christianity is the main religion of America.
And that's because what we're talking about here is not Christian anti-bias. We're talking about Christian supremacist anti-bias, right? Because you're right. I mean, first off, let's just be very clear. There's not one single study, there's not one piece of empirical data that would support these claims. The White House has given no examples except for one, which was a completely misconstrued piece of information. It was around a pro-life group that literally invaded an abortion clinic, and I think the nurse's arm was broken throughout the whole thing, and they got arrested. And right-wing Christian nationalists were like, oh my God, government persecution, these pro-lifers were just being peaceful. They weren't. That's their only example, right? So this is not about protecting Christians or even protecting religious groups in America. This is about Christian supremacists, Christian nationalists maintaining their privilege at the expense of everyone else. Because I'll tell you what, when it comes to progressive Christians, when it comes to Catholics, when it comes to non-Christian nationalist Christians, They don't care about them. They don't care at all about them. Christian identity means nothing when they think that person is a quote-unquote illegal immigrant, such as the case in Kilmar Abrego's situation, right? He is Christian. I mean, he appeals to God all the time. His wife appeals to God all the time. They don't care about that. They care about maintaining their access to power and control inside the government. So, this is totally a Trojan horse. And it comes down to maintaining certain political views that most people think are, not good, or maintaining their ability to be bigoted without feeling like, the government can infringe on that right to be bigoted. Honestly, it comes back down to white supremacy. I hate to say that, but this is the same argument that Bob Jones in the 60s used, right? Oh my God, you're infringing on our religious freedom to maintain racial segregation inside of our universities. How dare the government try and tell us that we can't do that? It's the same idea here. It's wild.
Yeah, well, it's really just a dog whistle. When they say anti-Christian bias, they mean anti-Christian nationalism. Because what do they mean when they say anti-Christian bias anyway? They're not talking about taking care of the poor. They're not talking about welcoming the immigrant.
Right.
So there was this email that the VA had sent out to all of its employees that said the VA task force now requests all VA employees to submit any instance of anti-Christian discrimination to anti-Christian bias reporting at va.gov.
Say it one more time, April, so we can all write that down.
Anti-Christian bias reporting at va.gov. So,
Got it. If you see something, friends, say something.
I think we could report easily the Trump administration cutting USAID. That takes away food, shelter, water from the least of these worldwide.
I would agree. Yeah. Or we can report the Trump administration for trying to illegally deport people who are Christians in America. I think that's more anti-Christian bias as well. Yeah.
If you want to get real annoying, I've seen Donald Trump wear mixed fabrics.
Yep. Absolutely. No, I agree. And we have to call him
how
out.
Anti-Christian are we going here? You can find a verse to go against pretty much anything. It would be a real shame. It'd be a real shame if people spammed that email address.
That would be horrible. I recommend that we definitely do not do that. No.
Definitely do not email anti-Christian bias reporting at va.gov with anything that goes against Donald Trump. Don't do that.
So according to, this is from the AP, the veterans, the VA Secretary Doug Collins, he sent a department-wide email requesting employees to report any allegations of anti-Christian discrimination among their colleagues. The email, which was reviewed by the Associated Press, asked for names, dates, and locations of any alleged incidents to be reported to an internal email address. That is wild. Talk about big government. Talk about the nanny state. Talk about tyranny. Oh my goodness.
There's some of the examples that they gave too. The department is seeking, quote, any adverse responses to requests for religious exemptions under the previous vaccine mandates.
Wow.
And, quote, any retaliatory actions taken or threatened in response to abstaining from certain procedures or treatments. For example, abortion or hormone therapy. Now, to be clear, I don't know. I have never heard a single person who was forced to get an abortion or hormone therapy. I don't even understand where they're I don't believe there's any evidence for what they're saying.
Well, I think what they're saying is that, and I could be wrong, but the way I would interpret that is if a healthcare practitioner has a religious, a religious reason for not performing an abortion or giving hormone therapy, they can deny the patient that care.
The person giving the procedure.
That's how I read it, because how else would that work? This is for the VA, and so I could be wrong. That's how I read it, but it sounds more of sense. Hey, if you're a government employee, you don't have to do these things based on religious freedom. And if you see this happening, or if you are challenged by that, you can report it as anti-Christian discrimination, and then we'll take care of it.
It's also just wild to me about the vaccine mandate, because that's one thing that they pushed as being religious persecution. There are people trying to claim religious exemption
Yeah.
from getting vaccines. There's literally nothing in the Bible that you could point to as, like, I understand people not wanting to get vaccines, but to use like, oh, it goes against my religion as a Christian, it's just not true. It does not go against your religion to not get a vaccine.
During COVID, Awakened Church, which is a Christian nationalist church, was giving anyone who wanted one a religious exemption form to not take the COVID vaccine. They were literally like, hey, if you need a form for any reason, we'll give it to you. Wink, wink. It's absolutely wild. And it's also wild to think about how much Christianity is infused into our culture. Christian holidays, right? Our entire economy and society revolves around Christmas and Easter, spring break, all of these things. You have entire industries that are Christian based in entertainment, in publishing, in music, in everything, right? You have pastors. There's 250,000 churches in America. 250,000. That's a lot of churches. The government is full of Christians. Evangelicals are the most powerful voting bloc, arguably, of religious identifying people in America. They literally shape elections. And these people really think that they are being persecuted for their faith. Because they have, I call it the American Christian persecution complex. They really are looking for any reason to find persecution so they can cry foul, as they are the most privileged group of people to exist in the nation. I'll never forget, I went to, Charlie Kirk, our friend over there at Turning Point USA. I went to one of their pastor summits maybe 2 years ago. And a pastor, this is when President Biden was still in office, he said from the stage that he's truly concerned that at any moment the Biden administration is going to throw him in prison. And I grew up believing that. I was taught, thanks to talk radio and my church, that at any moment liberals are going to kick down doors, throw people in prison, tear up their Bible and feed it to them, and then laugh in their face about it. That's the kind of delusion many of these Christians have. And now those same Christians have access to political power that allow them to form anti-Christian biases or task force.
No, it's just
shocking.
The weird thing about it is there was a time in my life, like 15 years ago, that I would have been so excited about this because I genuinely believed that Christians in America were persecuted. Despite having never been persecuted. And I actively tried. I was very obnoxious about spreading my faith and telling people about Jesus in public, like in my public school.
Oh, yeah.
Literally, no one ever kicked me out. No one ever told me I couldn't do that. No one ever was even really that mean to me. Because most people that I was talking to were also Christian. Or, had no problem with it. What they're talking about is they're losing their right to discriminate.
Yes.
To say no to certain groups of people that they think go against their religion. But the problem is in America, one of our founding principles was freedom from religion, which was that people can practice and believe any religion that they want to or not. There is no statewide religion. There's no enforced, because what's going to happen in this anti-Christian bias, in their attempt to weed out what they're calling anti-Christian bias, they're actually going to be biased against everybody that does not believe exactly what they believe, including a lot of Christians. Like 100%. You and I. There's a lot of progressive Christian denominations. There's a lot of moderate Christian denominations that don't fall into this Christian nationalist sect that are going to directly be harmed by this attempt. Because what they're really talking about is, I was forced to hire a trans person.
Exactly.
And the thing, no one's being forced to hire a trans person, but they're making this persecution complex, the whole the idea of baking a cake for a gay wedding. Right. That was a big story, several years ago.
Yep,
that they
in Colorado.
Tried to frame. Yeah, they tried to frame as Christian persecution, but the problem is you are a public business.
That's right.
And that's not Christian persecution. What that is you actually persecuting a gay couple for no reason.
It's discrimination.
And causing harm and literally judging someone that you don't know who's making decisions that go against your beliefs, but don't go against their beliefs. And the whole, it's just so infuriating because you also know, like, bringing in the hypocrisy of it all. You know, they wouldn't bake a cake for a gay wedding, but I know for a fact a lot of these same people that wouldn't attend a gay wedding because it goes against their religion are attending a lot of Christians' second, third, fourth, fifth weddings.
Or worshiping a man on his third marriage who's been found liable for sexually assaulting a woman. Like that, somehow that's not an issue for them. 100%. It's the same, although there are different factors because history rhymes, it doesn't repeat itself. It's the same logic as white Southern evangelicals justifying their right to discriminate against black people in business based on their religious views. It's the same idea behind it, right? We would never tolerate that today, but for some reason, some Christians think that it's totally acceptable to be able to do it to other types of people because in their mind the Bible told them so. It's almost, and it's really sneaky because the right-wing media complex is really good at smearing the actual stories. For example, I'm sure you've heard it a lot growing up, April. I did. They took God out of public schools. Did you know that you can't pray in public school? I heard that all the time. You can't bring your Bible into public school. That is not true. What got removed was the ability for teachers who are acting on behalf of the government to lead students through prayer because it would violate the religious freedom of other students who weren't Christian. But students can pray in school. Students can bring their Bible in school. You can do all of that. In fact, I used to work for Child Evangelism Fellowship, CEF, one of the biggest organizations that reaches boys and girls with the gospel of Christ. They had after-school Bible programs inside public schools that students could attend. So this narrative that you hear,
at the pole still exists. Did you ever go to see you at the pole?
Of course I did, April.
Flagpole in public school.
Of course. I was bold. I was loud and proud. So you're absolutely correct. Like, this is not about religious freedom. It's about weaponizing religion to discriminate against people that they just don't like. Because if this was about sexual purity or even following the Bible, any baker who was asked to perform or who was asked to bake a cake for a couple might ask, well, are you greedy? Well, is this your first or second marriage? Have you guys been having premarital sex? Because I can't bake a cake for someone who doesn't follow a biblical worldview, right? I would have more respect for a baker who was like, look, I have a questionnaire of all of my clients for weddings that they have to go through. I still disagree, but at least you're being consistent. But it's not about that. It's not even about sexual purity. It's about making sure that gay people don't feel welcome because America. And that's what this whole anti-Christian nationalism task force is about. It's about being able to discriminate against people that they just don't like.
Yeah. Well, and it's also, I do think it's a way to draw attention from the fact that they are harming a lot of people, like immigrants, like refugees, like women, like LGBTQ people. Just announced they were going to defund the LGBTQ youth suicide hotline.
I know. What the hell?
Like, I do think what they're doing here is almost like the showmanship of Christianity, of like, well, look, we are the Christian party. We are the Christian administration because look at all these things we're doing for Christians. We're weeding out anti-Christian bias while enacting some of the most anti-Christ policies like in existence, which I think, and we'll talk about this some on Monday, like the things that kind of keep Christians in this Christian nationalist movement is because when you see like, oh, look, this is the most pro-life president we've ever had. This is the most Christian, like he's openly talking about Jesus and Easter. He's openly talking about wanting to protect Christianity.
Right.
It almost can keep them from seeing the actual harm being caused and the actual weaponization of scripture of harming people in the name of God. It's because you're seeing what you would perceive as good.
Right.
So you can ignore all the bad. And it's a lot of bad. It is a lot of bad.
It's like Jesus says, these people praise me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. I can think of no greater example in our current cultural moment than the Trump administration and the Christians who support him in the name of biblical values, in the name of Jesus, in the name of this is how a Christian nation would behave. A Christian nation would not defund access to suicide hotlines that help millions of people, including LGBTQ plus youth. Someone in the chat said that they're also trying to defund the veteran suicide line as well. I believe that because these, April, I don't want to sound this way, but after studying this for so long, I have to say it. These people are cruel. And that's why they like Trump, because Trump is cruel, because they worship a cruel God. Christian nationalists worship a cruel God, a God that is jealous, a God that is built on vengeance, a God that is going to punish all of his enemies in hell forever. That's why they love Trump. Trump is the incarnation of the authoritarian God that these people worship. There's just no other way to say it besides saying it like that. There's all these connections. Trump wants 24/7 praise and adoration. And I'm not sure about you, April, but I was taught that when I die and go to heaven, I'm going to praise God forever because God is worthy of my praise. That's all I'm going to do. I'm going to sit in some arena and just sing songs to God because that's just my calling in life, is to worship someone else forever. Like, there's all these correlations, there's all these connections that you can make between how Trump behaves and the God of Christian nationalism, and it's cruel. It is cruel. It's inhumane. It's dehumanizing. It does not see other humans on the outside group as made in the image of God like they are. It's based on supremacy, and this is the result. This is the result of a Christian nationalist agenda being implemented into our government, and we're less than 100 days in. It's wild.
Yeah, it's really interesting. In the last several minutes, I was just curious of Pam Bondi's actual, like, her religious affiliation and her Christian background. Obviously, she's making a big show of kind of heading up this anti-Christian bias task force. I can't find, at least in like my initial search, anywhere where she talks about her beliefs or her Christian background. She does have some ties to receiving a fundraiser from Scientologists, oddly enough. And it does seem like she has some connections with NAR, but I don't see like maybe we could do a deep dive on her at some point, because I want to know what her actual Christian background is.
I would not be surprised if there really isn't one. Right. And by the way, friends, welcome in. Make sure to give this video a like, sub to the channel, all that good stuff. But like, you know, we have to understand that Christian nationalism, and I just did a video on this that we're going to drop on the New Evangelicals channel maybe next week. But Christian nationalism is not built around a particular theology or doctrine about God. It's built on an ideology and a political viewpoint. And then the theology is kind of secondary. This is why, for example, an atheist like James Lindsay, right, can be platformed at the Turning Point USA Pastor Summit because he says the right things that buy into their culture war, right? So Christian nationalists are not super focused, at least right now, at this point, on the right theology. This is why Catholics like J.D. Vance and Doug Wilson or John MacArthur will work together. So Pam Bondi doesn't have to be an actual, even professing Christian. Trump isn't a professing Christian, right? But Trump will give them access to the power and control that they want. And so because Christian nationalism is the foundation of it is power, right? The foundation of Christian nationalism, it's not following Jesus. It's not trying to please God. It's none of that. It is trying to gain access to power. And so because of that, they will use whoever they can, including someone like Pam Bondi, if she will say the right things. And that's the connection.
Right. Same thing with how they're using Trump. You know?
Exactly. 100%.
We're not seeing a lot of good fruit in his life.
No,
good,
the fruit is
Christian
rotten.
fruit.
The fruit is rotten. It's totally rotten. It doesn't matter.
So anyway, there's another, just a friendly reminder, anti-Christian bias reporting at va.gov is the email address to report anti-Christian bias.
Do we need to move on to another piece of news that dropped this week? Oh, there's so much. We got this guy, Pete Hegseth. Speaking of Christian nationalists, I mean, this guy loves Doug Wilson. This guy is pretty much all about the Crusades all over again. He now runs the world's biggest and most powerful military, so that's great. He's also incompetent.
Is he?
I mean, when I think of meritocracy, I think of no one more qualified than Pete Hegseth. Clearly.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I think of meritocracy. I do think of him just because of how many times he said that word in his confirmation hearing.
So much.
That was like word of the day.
So, I mean, friends, I'm sure a lot of you have followed the news. You know, Pete Hegseth came under real criticism, along with many others, because there was a Signal chat where they accidentally added a reporter from the Atlantic, and they were dropping like very classified information in a Signal chat, which is like mind blowing. I mean, they were talking about war strikes in Yemen, and I mean things that were clearly confidential. And of course, they all denied it and all this stuff. Well, Pete is back in the news because it turns out he did it again. Only it's even worse because he added his wife and I think brother or brother-in-law to the chat.
His wife, brother, and personal lawyer.
Oh my God. Can you just imagine? Oh my goodness. Can you imagine that? This bro, like, dude, have you not like learned your lesson? No, of course not. Oh my gosh, your wife and your brother and your personal lawyer in their group chat dropping information about war plans in Signal.
Mm-hmm.
You want to hear his response to some of this?
I do want to hear the response. I also just want to point out the absolute outrage that happened in 2015 leading up to the 2016 election over Hillary Clinton's emails. She didn't even forward them to bad people. She just brought her classified or like access classified emails at home, and like conservatives lost their minds over that.
Dude, they still talk about her. They still talk about Hillary Clinton's emails. They're obsessed. They're obsessed.
Right, but literally here you have the Secretary of Defense sending military plans, like active military plans on an unauthorized server to unauthorized people.
Yeah. This is according to NBC News. Shortly before the U.S. military conducted a complex operation striking the Iran-backed Houthis in Yemen, the defense secretary shared sensitive national security and operational information about American troops on a Signal chat with his wife, his brother, and his personal lawyer. People who had no reason to need to know about these upcoming strikes. By the way, can I just say, on a practical level, man, does this put actual troops in danger? Like this, for a second, forget about all the talking points, all the meritocracy nonsense. Like just doing this puts actual people in harm's way.
I know.
I thought these people were pro-military. I thought these people cared about, national security and making America strong. And, Pete Hegseth brags about being a wartime, person who's all about making the Pentagon and the military more strong and stronger again. And this is what you do? This does the complete opposite. So obviously he's come under fire. Let's hear how he responded. Here's one good video on this.
No one's texting war plans. You know why I said that? Because I'm in the bowels of the Pentagon every single day. Just 10 minutes ago, I was looking at actual war plans of things that were ongoing or pending things to happen. Because that's on a regular basis on classified systems. That's my job for the war fighters, for the President of the United States. I look at war plans every single day. What was shared over Signal, then and now, however you characterize it, was informal, unclassified coordinations for media coordination and other things. That's what I've said from the beginning. At the beginning, it was left-wing reporters from the Atlantic who got a hold of it and then wanted to create a problem for the president. This is what it's all about, trying to get at President Trump and his agenda. Now, here at the Defense Department, because, Brian, I want this to be very clear.
Okay,
we
go ahead,
take
Pete.
the classification of information very important. It's very significant to us that we safeguard it. And so when we had leaks, which we have had here, we did a serious leak investigation.
Bro, you're the leak.
You're the leak. And also, the guy from the Atlantic, they got a hold of it.
Got a hold of it.
You sent it to him. You sent it to him, Pete.
One of your dudes added him to the group chat. He didn't get a hold of it. You opened the door and said, "Come on in."
God.
I mean, talk about accountability, right? Talk about manning up. Because listen, Pete's all about that real, strong masculinity that takes ownership and leads your family the right way. Nothing says accountability and strong, biblical manhood like deflecting and blaming everyone else. Just like Adam did in the garden, might I add, right? Who did Adam blame? Right? I guess we can say that.
Yeah, if we haven't, we've discussed too, when he was in the process of being confirmed, he said that he'd stop drinking if he was confirmed. I don't know if he actually has done that. But like there's been reports of his time at Fox News where he'd like show up with alcohol in his breath, like in the morning. Like he has a history of drinking. And I've seen someone online, which I just think is a funny thing, calling him Whiskey Leaks. Anyway, that's just I enjoy that nickname.
Let's play the clip of Pete talking about this with his kids behind him, because even his kids see how cringe this is.
This is from the Easter White House event from like this past weekend.
Yeah, okay.
Family friendly affair.
Yeah. All right. Here we go. All right, so listen to this.
It does. They take anonymous sources from disgruntled former employees, and then they try to slash and burn people and ruin their reputations. Not going to work with me, because we're changing the Defense Department, putting the Pentagon back in the hands of warfighters, and anonymous smears from disgruntled former employees on old news doesn't matter. So I'm happy to be here at the Easter egg roll with my dad and my kids, because, this is what we're doing it for. These kids right here. This is why we're fighting the fake news media. This is why we're fighting slash and burn Democrats. This is why we're fighting hoaxsters. This group, this group right here, full of hoaxsters that peddle anonymous sources from leakers with axes to grind, and then you put it all together as if it's some news story. And when we know exactly what it is. So I'm really proud of what we're doing for the president, fighting hard across the board, and I'm going to go roll some Easter eggs with my kids. Thank you very much.
His kids are
faces.
Mortified.
That's like Melissa in the chat looks like camera, like he's on The Office. Like those are some Jim Halpert looks right there of like just staring at the camera like, okay, Dad. Also, I love how at the very beginning he was like, it's just some anonymous sources from disgruntled employees. Okay, which was it? Are they employees that you can name, or are they anonymous?
Yeah, like, who are these people? I mean, look, it's obvious why Trump picked him, because he's just like Trump. His plan is to lie and deflect out of everything. Again, there's no real accountability. They're not willing to own anything. It's everyone else's fault. Like, they are the world's biggest snowflakes, right? These people, they try to exude this masculinity of like the ideal American man, but really they're weak and they're cowards and they're little boys inside, and they're just trying to look for attention and be validated by other men. And it turns out that instead they deflect and sound incredibly weak, because they are.
I think it's very fitting, actually, that he is the Secretary of Defense, because he has been nothing but defensive since he's got the role. I mean, he's had to defend himself. Like, that's all he's doing. Like, he just digs himself into a hole, like clearly seeming to be a bit unhinged.
Now, there are rumors. I think that the Trump administration is denying this, but there are rumors that they're trying to get this guy out, because they're like, oh my God, this guy's a shit show. Which, I mean, again, with Trump, no matter what he says, I never trust him because he lies profusely. But I honestly would not be surprised if behind the scenes his team is like, this guy's got to go. He's got to go. Which, honestly, again, if you're trying to build a strong military, what you don't want is your Secretary of Defense putting classified information in signal chats with either journalists or your own family members. Like, that's egregious. That is absolutely egregious. So that's what NPR is saying, as someone in the chat says. But the White House, as far as I know, as of this stream, is denying it. So we'll see what happens. We shall see.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Well, so a couple other things that have happened that we can just touch on, because I mean, there's a million things. We'll probably sometime in the next few weeks, I think, maybe try to do a deeper episode on what RFK Jr. is doing specifically when it comes to autism. Yes. And some of the things he's saying right now about autistic people are just egregious. And terrible and wrong. And yeah, so he's kind of making his whole thing about finding cures for autism.
Maybe this is a good place to say that what we're doing, friends, on the show is that on Thursdays we're going live and we're covering whatever's happening in the news in real time. But on Mondays we're dropping episodes that are deep dives on Christian nationalism and the world of people that are kind of behind all of this. So we did one last week talking about just kind of the big picture overview. We talked about we're talking about Paul the White this Monday, and we're booking more and more really experts to help you better understand what's behind some of this stuff, including someone to talk about RFK and his abhorrent and ignorant and dehumanizing comments about people with autism. So we're working on doing that. So make sure that you subscribe to the channel, or if you want, you can also find this on podcast as well. So we drop these episodes on podcast and on the YouTube channel, but make sure that you sub, because we are here to help you better understand what's behind this, because if we do that, then we can better resist it. That's the plan.
Yes. Yes. So every Monday we'll go a deep dive into someone or something relating to Christian nationalism, or evangelicalism, whatever's going on. And then we'll go live on Thursdays. Yeah. That will cover more newsy things.
The other big story that, it's big, but we can mention it here, is that this is, I keep thinking about how low can this administration get, lower and lower and lower and lower. And it always seems to surprise me. And most recently, I'm not sure if you saw this, April, but the wife of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, her address was doxed by the government. They dropped her address on an X post, and that forced her to find a safe house for her and her child. I am blown away by that. I mean, that's not an accident. That is absolutely intentional, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, and they're continuing to double down on painting Abrego Garcia as dangerous and violent. And as a result, obviously, his wife is going to be, I mean, there are some people in these right-wing spaces that are absolutely dangerous and unhinged, that send death threats and threaten actual physical violence towards people all the time. And I guess you could say that for all sides have violent people. But it does seem like right-wing are especially unhinged. And so the government doxing a private citizen like that is just absolutely terrible. It's awful. She's already going through so much grief on the fact that her husband was just ripped away, and like the father of her children, like ripped away from their home, like already having to deal with the immense grief and trauma from that, to now having to go to a safe house because your own government doxed you.
Yes, exactly. So this is according to New Republic. At one point, the Department of Homeland Security posted online an order of protection that Jennifer Vasquez Sura had sought but later abandoned against her husband, and that order contained Vasquez Sura's home address, unredacted. And she said, "I don't feel safe when the government posts my address, the house where my family lives, for everyone to see, especially when this case has gone viral and people have all sorts of opinions." So yeah, I mean, this absolutely is a thing. It absolutely has happened. And don't forget, her and her husband did not ask for this. The government, Trump's own government, has admitted that they made an administrative error when they deported Kilmar for absolutely no reason. Absolutely no reason. And now what they're saying is that, well, we can't bring him back. So the government totally messed this one up. They're doing nothing to bring him back. He's currently sitting in a prison in El Salvador, away from his family. His son has autism as well. And now his wife is saying, yeah, and on top of that, the government not only posted an online order, not only posted an order of protection that I did seek at one point but later abandoned because we worked through it, but my address was on there and it was unredacted. That is intentional. That there's no way you make that mistake. That is an intentional thing to do from this administration, because this administration is built on the dehumanization of brown-skinned people. I mean, Trump said this during his campaign, that that immigrants, and we all know who we think about when we think about the word immigrant, that they're poisoning the blood of society, of our country. This is what he ran on, and now it's what he's doing, and real people are being really hurt. It's unfathomable, but it's true.
Right. Well, and the reason we have certain images when we think of immigrant is because of the way of who they talk about. When they're talking about coming across the border, they're not talking about the Canadian border.
Right.
They're specifically talking about south of the border and what that means, and the dehumanization of people that we should be loving as Christian. Talk about anti-Christian bias, like dehumanizing entire groups of people. Yeah. I would say is anti-Christian.
But especially
they would say is
especially when you lie about them, right? Because I mean that's the big thing, is they call it a migrant crime wave. We're being invaded. That statistically is completely untrue. Undocumented immigrants are half as likely to commit crimes as their native-born counterparts. Full stop. And so what we have happening here is a complete smear campaign, which is also anti-Christian, and it's hurting people. And it's again, cruelty is the point. There are people out there, there are Christian nationalists out there who absolutely love the fact that Kilmar is not in the country. They love that his wife is in fear. They think, it's not a big deal that the government posted her home address. And we do know that statistically, right-wing extremists are more likely to commit violence. They are. And so I absolutely understand why Jennifer would go into hiding, because I don't trust Matt Walsh's audience at all to not do something completely abhorrent and cruel to this person. So
yeah,
we'll keep you all apprised on how this story shakes out, but that's the current update on Kilmar Abrego Garcia and his wife right now.
Yeah. So do we want to go to our final segment?
Oh boy, we have to.
I'll apologize in advance for the cringe you are about to witness. Weird Christian shit.
Oh, friends, once again, by the way, thank you so much for being here. We have 300 people watching live with us. I love that. Make sure to give this video a like, subscribe to the channel. We go live every Thursday at noon, and we drop new episodes on Mondays, both on podcast and on YouTube. April, we've seen a lot of weird Christian bleep in our life. This one, though, it's a new level, dude. It's a new level, in my opinion.
I mean, I will say I've seen levels like this. I don't know if it went to a new low, but it's low. If you grew up in evangelicalism, one thing that has happened a lot in like an attempt to evangelize and to bring in, quote unquote, secular people is you take things that are really popular in the world, in culture, and you make them Christian. Like, I don't know how many times we sang like a secular song, like we sang a Coldplay song. You change the words to make it Christian, and then it's a worship song. There was a girl who changed the lyrics to a Lil Nas X song like several years ago. Instead of like "Call Me by Your Name," he'll call you by your name, like talking about Jesus and stuff. So this is a thing. It is a thing.
Before can I, I'm gonna switch to the shot and let people who are watching just see what this parody is, or not parody, sorry, this cover is, and then we'll get into it. So brace yourself, friends, because for Easter, a church that we're not going to name, listen, this is a small church. We don't want anything being sent their way, so we're not going to name them, but they did this. They did this. They did a cover of Wicked, Defying Gravity, but they called it Defying Graves for Me. Boy, should I just play a little bit and get us warmed up? Okay, I'm just gonna start randomly. We will get to the end.
Yeah, so for those listening, you've got a clear Elphaba character dressed in all black with the braid and the glasses, and her skin is green, and then you have a Glinda character in a pink dress and blonde hair.
Yeah, and here's what it sounds like. Here's a little excerpt.
You try, you'll never know. Too long we've been afraid of our sin and shame, thinking we've lost. But I know love, it died for me upon the cross, where Jesus is defying graves for me. And there he is defying graves for me. And you can't pull him down.
Linda, follow him with me. Think of what we could do together.
Unlimited. God's love is unlimited. With Jesus we'll be the greatest team there's ever been. All our lives the way he planned them.
Okay, I gotta pause. I can't do it, April. I can't do it.
Also, like, you could just, you had mentioned this earlier, we were talking about it, like, you could just keep it defying gravity.
Totally.
If you believe in, like Jesus ascending into heaven, like, he is defying gravity. You could just leave it.
Literally, it works actually quite well. It's quite clever.
Defying graves for me. Like, and I guess maybe they're including Lazarus, because I do think he defied one grave, unless you want to bring up, Lazarus come forth. So I guess you could go plural. you could have said defining grace, maybe.
Let's
I don't know. Defying grace for me just feels.
Also, like, okay, look, April, you're a musician. I'm a musician. We both, do this passionately. We're also creatives. I mean, the camera, it's overexposed. It looks horrible. It doesn't sound good. And two of them are singing, but there's only one track. It doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. And we're gonna play a little bit more. We have to, because the ending part is where it really ramps up. So here's how they end this cover.
He died, but the third day he'd rise. And if you want to rise to his love can set you free. To all those hurting, take his message back from me. Tell them how he's defying grace for me. He's risen high, defying grace for me, for his glory and renown. And nothing that I've ever done,
I can't do it.
no wickedness there ever was, is ever gonna bring God down.
Okay, I'll stop.
I know she does go to the.
Oh, is that here?
She
Is that here?
does it. Yeah.
Oh, here we go.
Can bring him
The comments, I'm dying.
He is risen.
Are these guys trying to make people atheists?
Oh man.
April, you know what I should have done? I should have played this smarter. I should have said, I'm going to play the 5-minute clip all the way through unless people give us super chats up to a certain amount, and then we'll
make
stop.
them make us stop.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. That's what I should have done. Stupid me. But yeah, that's what we got on this week's Christian Cringe.
The way this is shot too, it is so bright in the background. Like,
no. Well, it's just overexposed.
This is a produced. Like, they shot a music video, which means they recorded the music.
Yeah, right.
I mean, like, as a singer, I've definitely have had pitchy performances in my life.
For sure.
I don't know, like, they recorded that. Like,
that's what gets me. Okay, so for those of you out there who maybe have never been in a recording studio or who are not musicians, when you go to record, you listen back to your take very, very closely because you want it to be as perfect as possible. So the fact that people recorded this and said, good enough, let's post it, it just says a lot. It says a lot because, and again, April, to your point, people can be pitchy. I used to be a drummer. We make mistakes, but then you re-record and you fix them. You don't just put it out there as like, this is it. This is going to do it. Oh my gosh, it's painful.
I know, and like too that you can hear that they can sing. Like, they obviously have some range.
Well,
They hit.
I think it's just her though.
Notes.
I think it's
Is it just one?
If you listen to that track, which I won't do again, friends, I will not play it again. It's just one voice.
Well, there were different sections where the blonde girl was singing solo, but I don't know if one person recorded. I don't know.
I couldn't hear a distinction, but that could be true.
I just really want just Christians to stop hijacking non-Christian art. Make your own art. Like, there was a church, I don't remember where it was from, but last year or the year before, it did like a whole like Lion King.
Yes, I've seen them.
Like play, but made it about Jesus. Like, it was the Easter message. I've also seen them do it with like Marvel. There's just like, just stop. Just stop. Like, why?
And can I be honest? And listen, the people who are ex-evangelicals are not going to like this, but the church music industry has come a long freaking way. There are some really good bangers in that world. There's a lot of creativity. There's a lot. You have there's some great stuff. You don't need to rip off something that happens in the secular world and call it defying graves for me. That's another piece of this. Like, I don't, guys, you're in the room trying to create a title. That's what you came up with. Defying graves for me. Oh goodness, it's pure cringe. It's pure cringe.
And honestly, like, maybe don't go after like one of the harder songs to sing. Like Cynthia
it's a doozy,
Erivo.
right?
We're not all Cynthia, you know.
Right.
She's
No,
a
sure.
rock star. I can't sing that song the way I would not put that out there. I know I would sound bad, so I wouldn't do it. You know?
I'm no vocalist, but that song sounds incredibly difficult to pull off. Period. It sounds, there's a lot of runs and really high notes. I don't know how y'all do it, but even I know it sounds technical. So yeah, anyway, it was it was that's what we got for
I Christian shit.
I went with it. I just
that
tried
I've
to play
done
the button.
before. That's kind of fun, just to kind of give Christians a taste of their own medicine, is to rewrite Christian songs but make them secular. Like one time I rewrote the lyrics to God's Not Dead and I made it Tupac's Not Dead. You know, because there's conspiracies that he's still alive. Yeah, I did like it was like a few years ago, but it was like Tupac's not dead. He's surely alive. He's living out his best life somewhere on an island. Tupac's not dead. He's surely alive. Like, we should just do it back to him, you know?
Yeah, right.
And I did instead of like that Cornerstone song.
Yes.
Christian nationalists rewrite it if like they were honest, where it's like,
yes,
Trump alone, Roger Stone.
That was when I first discovered you. That was the first video I ever saw. You had like the little hat on and everything, and I showed Sarah. I was like, I am dying. It is hilarious. We should, for next week, maybe we should pull that just so we can play it. Because honestly, I think it's you do a lot of amazing pieces of content and they're all very creative. That one tickled me though. I was like, it got me. This is brilliant. I'm in. Follow. That was the one where I said, I'm into this creator. Follow.
Well,
yeah,
thank you. Yeah.
You're
so maybe we can find some
so.
more Christian songs and rewrite them and just pay it back, you know? Like,
I love it. Sweet. Well, there we go, friends. Another episode in the books, another live. Covered a lot of things today, and we'll be keeping you apprised as the world of American politics continues to unravel. So keep it right here, because we're just spreading all the good news that's going on in the world.
So much. But hey, Elon Musk is sad today.
I love that.
So.
Yes, I do. 70% drop. Woo! What a time to be alive. All right, friends. Listen, thanks again for listening. It means the world. Make sure to give this video a like, subscribe to the channel. If you're listening on podcast, thank you so much. It means the world as well. We'll be back here on Monday with another episode, deep diving into Christian nationalism and Paula White. It's coming up. So talk to you all soon. Bye.
Bye.
Where's my button? Found it.